business is adoption of or approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review that?
I would make a motion that we approve those minutes.
Steve and Chris? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Next item on the agenda is a special use permit 2024-03, David Rule. And since we have some new members on the board, do you want to just explain what a special use permit is? I don't
Sure.
think we've done one this year.
I'll be glad to, yes.
Kevin, before you do that, on your email here, did you want us to respond?
Yes, that'll be part of this.
Part of what you're getting ready to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm kind of getting back into it a little bit because I did this for a very long time. And then last year, Brian took that over. And so there's some things that I forget to mention. And we've gone through some training related to special use permits versus conditional zoning. And for many years, all we had was conditional use permits. And then that term changed over to special use permits. Same procedure, quasi-judicial rules about ex parte communication, sworn testimony, that kind of stuff. Now, conditional zoning doesn't have that. It's a legislative decision and is more open and open dialogue amongst yourselves and the applicant, the public, with other council members. But in special use permit, you are restricted. Now, you are not held at the same level as the council because they're the decision-making board. But you do follow the same procedure about not gathering together and discussing the project outside the meeting. And with that said, that's what some things dawned on me. So maybe I didn't make that clear. So I wanted to send out that email today just so that we can talk about how when we receive an application and the plans, how we go about going from that point to the meeting. And we've always said we want you, if there's a site involved, we want you to go visit the site. It doesn't mean grab up all the planning board members, let's go together. And you go see the site. And understanding this is a small town, you cannot avoid people 100% of the time. And so there may be someone ask you a question at the post office or food line or somewhere. And it's best to say, look, I can't really discuss that case outside the meeting, but be glad to when we get there to the meeting night. So that's why I sent that out, so we can be clear on what procedure that you follow as a board member, even though you're in an advisory capacity. So the email I sent today was so that you can disclose if you had a conversation with someone. The problem is more if it's not disclosed and someone finds out, hey, I heard that so-and-so talked to somebody and you didn't let people know. If you have a bias towards a project, not just this one in particular, but another one that's a special use, and you feel like your mind is made up one way or another, then you should not serve on that hearing for that project. Or if you have a conflict of interest, especially if it's financial, you're a partner with an applicant, or you designed the project, or you have a financial or a familiar, you're a family member or something like that, or a close associational relationship. Maybe doesn't mean that if you serve on the same board, maybe you're both on Rotary or a member of Rotary. That does not qualify. But something where you are closely related and have been for some time, I think. It's hard to kind of pinpoint where that conflict arises, but that's an example that we need to give pause before we serve in that particular hearing or that meeting. Does that make sense? As we go through it, if you have questions, certainly ask me and I'll try to answer it. But and so I asked Bill after I sent that, or before I sent, I couldn't remember the email, that related to this case, if you have, just describe, if you had a meeting with someone, it's good, right this time would be a good time to disclose that. That makes sense? It's complex, but hopefully I broke it down for you.
Okay, I'll go first if you'd like, since I'm the reason that the letter went out and everything else went on. You'll find I don't hide from anything in life, but here we go. First off, I didn't attend that meeting because I was out of town on the education of the SUP minus the other one. So I wasn't aware of the regulations on that, Kevin, and I'm sorry, I apologize for that. But I spoke with the owner of the Homestead Inn. I was delivering cucumbers to her, and she mentioned that a planning board member had stopped by her location and asked her to be here tonight to oppose it, and I thought that was kind of odd. So I called the next day. I called Mr. Keith Trexler and asked him if he knew that it was coming up on the board then, and we had a small conversation about the project, mainly just, what was in it. And I didn't, at that time, I still hadn't really read as I mentioned to him at that time, I hadn't even looked at all of the plans or anything. I was just asking if he had been contacted also in a move to be negative, because I don't know anything about the project at that time. And then a day later, this all started Monday, by the way, when I delivered the cucumbers, okay? And then Tuesday, I talked to Mr. Trexler. Wednesday, I talked to Ms. Diamond, and she didn't even know hardly anything about the project either, and she hadn't been contacted either. So that made me feel a little good. And then at the council meeting on Tuesday, Mr. Brooks Mason and Mr. Steve Coden and I say, hey, y'all read the project yet? We said, yeah, we didn't really know anything. We didn't talk much about it, but we're looking forward to seeing what was being presented. I had a question in my own mind about the alleyway that was in the middle of that, which has nothing to do with this project. But I did ask someone about who owns that alleyway. Was it the city or was it the two property owners adjacent? So that's the conversations I've had to date, So I am not biased. I'm not, I have no predetermined rulings or feelings on the project. I sure would like to hear it so we can get this kind of on the way to go. So that's, I don't feel that I should recuse myself. I haven't affected anything in any way that I know of.
Well, if I'm next, David Rulli and I both serve on the Chamber Economic Development Council, so I wanted to disclose that. And at a prior meeting of the EDC, I believe David mentioned to the people on the EDC that he was submitting an application for redevelopment, but we didn't look at anything or review any of the project. And of course, Tuesday evening, I did sit with Brooks Mason and G.K. Knappen at the council meeting, and we all said, I hadn't actually looked at the staff report yet and hadn't seen any of the plans, but we said we were looking forward to it and to the presentation, and that's it.
All right, Brooks Mason, the only conversation that I had was Tuesday evening with GK and Steve. It was very limited, it was very short, but we did have a conversation about that. I have visited the site individually 3 times. I've taken pictures. I have no conflict of interest. I have not made up my mind, no close associational relationships, and believe that I can continue to serve in this capacity for this issue.
Just briefly, I haven't had any conversation or any bias towards the project. I just wanted to alert that I have visited the site and done an inspection.
Kevin, I don't have any knowledge of the project. don't know the gentleman that's presenting this project, the proposed project. I did go by there today and take a good look, and I did take a number of pictures and walked around the adjacent properties and behind the property, but no biases and no real knowledge of the project.
All right.
So I've not had any conversations and, yeah, no interest or bias with the project. I did visit the site this morning and the surrounding alleys and all that.
I visited the site on Monday. I parked in the parking lot of the proposed development. I walked around the west side, went to the back, tried to see the east side, could not. Came back around, got my car, drove around to the Homestead end and noticed the sign that said, no turnaround and no parking except for guests. I pulled over to the far side of the parking lot. I got out to try to see the back 3-foot setback. There's a fence there. It's very hard. You could climb up on the fence and look, but I could not see it very well. I was walking back to my car and noticed somebody in the office. So I went over to the office to explain what I was doing. I felt like I was on private property, and that was my responsibility. Happened to be the owner of the Homestead Inn, and I asked her if she was familiar with the development that was going to be proposed for next door. She said she was. I said, do you know that there is a public meeting about it on Thursday night? She said she did not, but I said it's a regularly scheduled planning board meeting. At no time, excuse me, sir, at no time did I ask her to oppose it, support it, say anything positive or anything negative about it. What I asked her simply was if she knew about the meeting and if she planned to come. Her response was that in the past that she had issues with the town on other things, but she hadn't decided whether she was going to come or not. So at no time did I ask her to support it, oppose it, or do anything else. That was my conversation with her, other than the exchange of a few pleasantries. When I stayed there with my wife 2 or 3 times over the years, starting in about 1994. Talked about her dog, talked about her husband who loves to fish in Florida, who was not there at the time. And other than that, what was the extent of our conversation? I have no bias toward this project. I have not made up my mind. And other than what are the other requirements here? I have no conflict of interest.
Sounds good. Continue on.
You ready? Okay. As it has been tradition, staff would present the staff report and answer questions and present some of the plans and answer questions as much as we can, but some will be reserved for the applicant because they can provide more specifics. So some of those things, if you ask me, I may refer them to the applicant, David Rule. Okay. This project is special use permit 2024-03, David Rule at 133 Moore Street, which is Watership Down property. David is requesting this special use permit to demolish 4 office/retail units at Watership Down at 133 Moore Street and construct 4 2-story office and residential units. The property is 0.119 acres and is zoned central business, and this property is in the watershed. This property involves 4 lots. It's Watership Down, originally regulated by a conditional use permit that was approved in 1995. The applicant plans to partially demolish 4 buildings and rebuild with the existing footprint and add that 2nd story. I'll go on in just a minute, but this is an aerial that shows the first property, this one, and then this one. I'll blow out, and I can go back to this if we need to refer to later. This is a real, it's a panoramic of 2 properties, 2 pictures put together. And I did them such a way we didn't have 2 vehicles in one. Anyway, this is a survey of the property, and well, I'm gonna keep it right here as I explain some more of this information. There's a 5-foot setback on the sides that is applicable to the east and west property lines. It would also be applicable to that rear that backs up to the parking area back of Sixpence. But because there's no building in that part, particular attention to the 5-foot setback on the east and west. Section 1612.6 of the Land Use Code allows construction with the existing setback, but would not allow that second story unless they met the 5-foot setback on each side. Both sides of the building on Lot 3R and 5R and 6 are about 3 feet from the property line. There's a little bit more room on 5R in the back, but it's very complex back there as Steve, I think Greg mentioned, there's a fence back there and a lot of things going on. So the applicant would request through review here a waiver of that section to allow that second floor to be built within the 5-foot setback and go straight on up. And as I mentioned, he's going to partially demolish the building and keep some of the structure there. And I'll show that in some of the plans as we go forward. So that's one waiver that's being requested. This view shows the highlighted property of where the buildings are, and then the area in the back that's going to be considered for parking. This is the grassed area behind it now. As I mentioned, the parking, it's been gravel and grass and gravel and grass. I think it's, over the years, it's kind of fluctuated between. I think some parking used to spill over from this rear gravel lot here behind Sixpence. But what David wants to do is be able to leave a passageway between the buildings here, 10 foot wide, that you can get back to this this area back here and park. And that would be for the tenants and the ownership of the proposed buildings. As I understand it, there's 4 parking spaces reserved for the 4 commercial units. With what's being proposed, the office space and the residential units, it requires 7 parking spaces. The applicant proposed to add 6 additional spaces in the rear, and that would be a total of 10 spaces. The public spaces for access and use of the front of the building would be on the Moore Street side in the parking lot. I did not point out in your staff report, was brought to my attention and I forgot to mention, is the spaces are shown at 8.5 feet wide. Our standard is 9. I think it's also shown at 18 feet wide, but there's enough to extend the space length to 19 feet. But it's tight. There's only just enough room to get 8.5 foot spaces. So accordingly, David would need a waiver of the space width to be able to provide the additional parking in the back. You speak to stormwater management a little bit. The area in the back that will be used for parking, it's going to take some coordination of some of the other drainage coming off other properties. There's a drain that comes off the back of the Hannah building that empties onto, it comes down through here and empties about right there. And so the applicant would need to pick that up along with some drainage, gutter drains that would come off the back of the building and take that down. There's a box right here, a detention box, and that where they could access and be able to empty that stormwater coming off into that before it leaves the property. Now that box is not on his property, but the town put that in about 10 years ago. About right, Keith, about 10 years ago. And so it collects a lot of surface water in the back and is built to detain that for a period of time until that storm event's over and then released through a pipe that you can see down behind Homestead Inn. based on what's going on here and this runoff being channeled back to the detention, there will be increased runoff. What I said is no, runoff will not be increased, but as it finally leaves the property and through that detention, it will not be, because they're building right back in the same footprint, other than the parking that's going to be added. Let me move on to some other. This is the existing building and showing the walls that will be removed here, and then the walls that will remain in place is the dark black. It shows the first floor floor plans. The office, this will be the office building. These will be the residential components or units. This is the second floor office here still, and these will be the bedrooms will be upstairs here. There's the elevations shown. This one is the view from the parking lot, and this one is the view from here. If you're standing here or like right here, looking that way, this is that view. Okay.
Is that on the east side, looking from the parking lot?
This is on.
I'm sorry, the west side.
This would be the west side,
Yeah.
looking into the parking lot.
Okay, yeah.
And this would be looking north.
Yeah.
And then the opposite, this is standing in the back parking lot, looking at the back side, and this is looking from the Homestead Inn, looking at this back corner. Okay? This doesn't quite show up here, but it's some gray and some cream colors that are being proposed with this rock finish. Again, this is the view. If there was nothing in the way, you could see that. And then this is from the back corner, about where the dumpster is in the back. This would be looking that direction.
Can you go back one picture, please? What's the height of that, do you know the height of that breezeway or driveway?
This right here.
Yeah,
At this point right here,
yeah,
this is a 10-foot passageway.
yeah,
So that at the highest point, it'd probably be about 12, 13.
okay.
Is that pedestrian only though, right?
I'm sorry?
Is that pedestrian
Is that
only?
no, that's for
Okay, so that's
driveway.
drive-through, okay.
No, that's,
Access to the parking.
yeah, to be able to drive through and get to the back.
You say it's 12 feet, you think, to the highest point? Would there be any trucks going back there?
No.
That would be 12 feet?
No.
That would be only for
Residents.
back there, residents back there.
Or owners.
Well, that's what we want to put a.
Kevin, could you go back about 4 or 5 slides to the plan layout again? No, keep going. I want to see that right there. So what we're talking about is going through that passageway and having 3 on each side with the passageway in the middle there, parking. Then it shows about 6 or 8 parking spots, which is, I guess, 6 fences parking.
That's right.
So the only access to their parking spot is through that opening.
Yes.
Okay, so there won't be a flow through in coming down between Sunset and Vine or out to the alley up at the top.
No.
Okay.
Would that be landscape? Because right now it's wide open. I mean, how would they prevent that?
Put a fence up.
Okay, that's all I was, yeah.
Dave and I talked about, doesn't have to be a tall fence, but some kind of a barricade. Not really enough room to put landscaping back there. There is a tree right here, this little sucker tree that's grown up over the years, but based on this construction, it'll be gone.
Yeah, so I was just looking at the picture that I'd taken.
Yeah.
And as far as that dumpster pad goes, it says that would be removed because obviously it's encroached on their property already. But what, is it gonna be completely removed or are they gonna just move it up so there's still the dumpster? Because that's a double dumpster for somebody back there.
It's for sixpence and maybe other properties, but it's gonna have to be moved. And Don't know yet. Haven't had that conversation with Sixpence on what their plans are, but it will have to be moved because it's on their property.
And the electric transformer that's back there, is that Blue Ridges? Are they gonna have to, they'll have to move that? Or,
I don't know.
I don't know if you can build around it or not, looking at the picture here, but.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but, that portion of it is a detail that's administrative, so we'll handle that. Some of those type of things are done through the building permit process. But good concern, you know.
Is the parking area going to be paved, or is it a impervious where it could be rocked or something to where it would have less runoff?
I think that it's going to be paved, but I'll let David answer that one. It doesn't have to be paved, but if it's crush and run, it's compacted over time, that will be impervious. If it's just loose washed gravel, it has some pervious nature to it. But for it to be long lasting, paving is the way to do it. You can do pavers, but still, same thing applies. It's better to go ahead and pave it.
Okay.
Can you walk me through the parking at the front of the building? I want to see how you navigate past some of those other businesses.
Tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave that one for David.
Perfect.
Because I know there's some gravel on this left side here, and there's some spaces here. I don't know how it's all designated.
Okay.
I'll let him
Thank
answer
you.
that. The last thing I didn't mention, you see there is some landscaping in the front here. I believe all of that would be removed through construction. And then there would be some opportunity for some small landscaping in front, just for accent. But I don't think there'd be a good place for big trees. But for some stuff that could, it won't look like the photo where it's just stark across the front. There would be some softening with some landscape there, and could be in some raised beds or some planters or something like that.
Can you go back to the elevation, the pictures of the proposed plan? Yeah. Well, I see it's some pitch and some flat roof. What's the highest point on that pitch roof? And how does that relate to what's adjacent? What are the heights of the adjoining properties?
Well, the one adjoining is just one level, like,
Well, I know part of it, kind of to the left of it, I believe is the old gray stone building, the Christmas store.
oh, yeah,
That's way
those
high.
are, yeah, those are
That's
26 to 28. And this is below those, so the backside of those is even greater in height. I can't read that. So this one says 30 feet.
Yeah, there are two.
The highest point.
The highest point of the
The
pitch.
back ridge is 30 feet. The one closest is 28 and a half.
Do you have a height on the two adjacent two-story properties to that?
Yeah. Like the Bull and Bear, you know the height of that one?
All up
No,
five.
but
The,
if I had to guess, I would say it's about 23 or 4.
what about across the street? The Silversmith and Goldsmith?
Oh, he's high.
Oh, Gaines Kiker?
Yeah, he's high.
Yeah.
He's less than 30.
And Hemlock Inn, would they also be, just trying to get a sense of what's around it height-wise?
Come back to it. I'll see if I can find an aerial, well, not an aerial, but so we can take a panoramic view of it.
I don't think it'd be too bad because the Homestead Inn's got a two-story facility also with a pitched roof. So And I know mine's right at 30 feet, even though it's a one-story, so.
Okay. Mr. Rule, you'd like to present?
Yeah, I don't have anything to present other than if you have questions for me or if you want backstory, I'm happy to give you that or.
So I do have a question for you.
Back up here.
Yeah, come on.
Sorry, I'm new to this.
It's all right.
So back to the parking question, what I heard Kevin say is the required parking is 7 spaces. With the 6 additional spaces, you have 10, but they're substandard sized. And kind of pushing that envelope of what's in the back there, right? So why 6? Why not just do 4 standard sized spaces back there?
Well, this is really loud. I think just from a holistic perspective, so a little background of where we're coming from. The front,
I get you.
The parking area that's in the front currently that serves the property, and then also the gravel area is the Hannah's property. And so then folks from Christmas at Blowing Rock and Hannah's building, they park in those spots. I don't know a word to describe the parking lot other than to say it's a cluster. Like, it is not a good experience. And as someone that's new to it, there's kind of a history of, some, sour feelings back and forth between people in the lot. But it's because you basically had 4 businesses that were in the space that these are in, that all were trying to use those spots there. And then you also have overflow sometimes from Keith and Danielle's store. That's also they all have rights to those spots. They all share it. And then also Hans's building where Arcadia is massage. They sometimes will have, they don't have a ton of clients, but sometimes they'll have someone in there too. So it can just be a lot. And so opening it up to create access to the land in the back, basically what it does is it just it's like a relief valve on the parking lot. And so the first building, can I pull the elevation up?
Yeah.
So I don't have great neck mobility, so I'm gonna actually stand here.
Here's a laser.
So this building here will be office, just for like professional offices is what I'm proposing. And the reason I started that is because I need an office. Like, I moved here a little over a year ago and there's not any office space in the high country really. And in particular in Blowing Rock, there's just not a lot of office space. And so I'll own this building. This won't be for sale. And then I'll just lease out the other offices to other people, that want to have an office. And then this building here, the Carters, Warren and Captain Carter, they own the building already. They're kind of at the point in their life where they're thinking about they're not retiring, but their eyes sort of towards retirement, and they're kind of thinking, well, what do we want to do? They're kind of having all these life questions things. So they really want to participate in the project to create like little apartments. So maybe someday if they were to get a house somewhere else, then they could come. I'm telling you all this for a reason. So they have a place to come back, they'll be their place. So it'll be owner occupied as well. And then this would be, I would do it just as a spec house. Like, it would just be a for sale property. And then this last unit here, this would be for my dad. My dad also moved here with us. My mom's passed away. And so I would build this for him. So that would be his house. And so to answer your question about the parking, I know this is a long answer, but it's basically to help relieve what's happening in the front. Because I think if the 4 buildings here aren't trying to park there, if they're parking in the back, then suddenly it just means there's tons of parking in the front, relatively long run, tons of parking. And the other thing it does is it creates dedicated parking for the people that are living there. So like the Carters aren't having to worry like, oh, did someone come and like steal my spot when I came in town from the beach? Or like my dad is also older, he has a dedicated spot in the back. And then for me, in my office, I want a dedicated spot that I can go to. And then that leaves us with just a couple other spots for the other offices in there to lease. I think functionally too, the existing building is each one of these is basically 2 units. So it's like 2 offices, 2 offices, 2 offices, 2 offices. And, you know, what we're creating here is 4, so there is an addition here from 2. But then here, it's actually going to, it's not really creating anything, it's still just an upstairs and a downstairs. And then here, there's a 2-bedroom unit. And then this one is also a 2-bedroom unit. So functionally, I think it's not actually functionally any different. It's just the spaces are bigger and they don't look so ugly. You know what I'm saying? Like it's more appealing. Maybe ugly is the wrong word to use. But so that was kind of what led to like, okay, well, we'd rather have a slightly tighter parking space than like what's recommended, and still people be able to like functionally use this, and hopefully it would solve and be a benefit to the other people that are in front. So now it's like other businesses have more parking as well, and those units aren't fighting for the parking that's in the front part of the building. Does that make sense?
Can you walk me through the parking when you enter, not the back lot, but that front lot, how cars will enter and where those parking spaces will be? It's not, I'm just having a hard time seeing it on our plan.
So
Let me go to this. Let me go to this. Does that help?
we're
No,
going to the site.
I'd rather see aerial if possible.
How about that one?
Correct.
So right now, and Keith, you stop me if I say this incorrectly. You can see here, there's 2 cars here, and then is there another spot, or is this garden, or is there another spot?
No, there is no parking there, that's a garden.
That's the garden spot, okay. So they're basically cars that come in here off Moore Street, and then they park here, along here. And so it's not striped, so that people really wedge in there, unless they have like an F-250, and then it's like, you're not getting very many cars in there. And then right here, there are 2 parallel spots that the Bull and the Bear, the Miss Diamond's unit, or I think she might have sold it to her son. She said that when I talked to her. They park, those two units, they each park here. And then this is the Hannah's property. So this right along here, I believe there's 4 spots. Is that right?
5 spots.
5 spots. So then there are 5 spots that are the Hannah's right here on this gravel lot. And then there's 1 handicap spot that's right here.
Not officially.
It's not official.
Somebody just put the sign up there, it's not official.
Okay. So what would happen with our project is we would come in here and basically just cut a hole right here to be able to access these rear spots.
And then what about parking in the front, or did I misunderstand? Would you still have parking,
There would still be parking here.
those 4 spots?
Yes,
Okay,
because this middle part is owned by the POA.
gotcha.
And so all these units all have a right to it. They all have a right to this parking. And so it would, but by basically kind of cleaning all this up, it will enable us to, I think, to maybe even push this over a little bit more to create even a little bit more, actually just functional usability for the parking lot. Whereas right now, it's even, if these spots are full, these spots are full, and these are all full, it's very tight getting in and out of there. It's not like an Austin Powers like 10-point turn, but it is like, if you have, especially with an SUV, it might take you a couple of times to get. So hopefully it will just create like a relief valve, and this will open up this rear parking.
Can I add something real quick? My property there is buildable property. So that building, I can put a building on that property according to the way when I purchased it, that's what I did with it. And it is a buildable piece of property. So you're thinking of it as just a parking lot, but it's not a parking lot. It's a parking lot right now, but it's buildable.
And I'm sorry, which property is you?
Is that the gravel?
Right there.
Yes.
The gravel section?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And if I might, just insert something, the discussion of parking up front, if you go in there and try to mark it off and squeeze the parking as best you can, you won't get more than 8 parking spaces in the front. So it's very small, very tight. I think you're gonna have some issues trying to turn in that little parking area to get, especially some of the cars that we see today. I mean, we've had some cars parked back there, Suburbans and all sorts of things, it takes up most of the space. And if you're trying to get through that little 10-foot corridor, to bring those cars back and forth, if somebody's going in one direction, other one the other, I think you're just setting up for problems. But that's the way I see it, and I'm sorry, I wish I could say it was bigger, better, but it's.
Well, a standard garage door is 8 feet wide, so it gives you an additional foot on each side from a standard garage door. And we have, my wife drives a Suburban, and she pulls it in fine to the 8-foot slot. But, you know, obviously, everything would be better, more generous if we were building this, you know, in Lenore, you know, up Highway
I've got another
321. or
question for you there. When you look at the parking again, based on what Keith just mentioned, that currently, if you squeeze it in, you could get 8. If you're adding an additional 6 in the back, in my calculations is 14, but I gotta lose at least 2 in the front to put your driveway through.
Well, currently, there's no parking here. It's just over here. So
Let me
this,
go back.
No, I'm not quite sure that's correct, is it?
there's no parking here.
There's no parking.
In front of the Carters, no, you can't park there.
Okay. I have, but I'm not sure I'll do it legally.
Not supposed to.
Not supposed to.
A lot of people
Okay,
park
so you're saying there's 8 parking spots, including the 2 by Diamond?
Yes,
Okay,
well, there's 8, if you, I count 3, there, you could squeeze 3 cars in there. You
okay,
get 8 parking spaces, you gotta put 3 there, 2 where I am, where my car and that car is, and 3 the side.
okay.
So if you add that up, that's 8, and that's making 3, counting the up front is 3.
Okay. So we wouldn't actually lose any by putting the passageway. The only thing you're losing is square footage on ground level.
Speaking of that passageway, the question was asked how tall it is, so about 9.5 feet at the top. 9.5 feet to the top of the arch.
The other question on the 8.5 foot parking spaces, I know that's tight, but the parking back there is for the ownership of the units, not necessarily for public parking is the way that's designed, am I correct?
You're correct.
Okay.
All right, so Kevin just mentioned that the top of the arch is 9.5 feet at the very top, correct? So has we gotten to the point yet where we've started talking to first responders, fire or ambulance or an EMT, or is everything going to be able to be accessed from the front of the buildings? Because you mentioned also that there's going to be a fence in the back, so that takes Greenway
Yeah,
Court out
It's
from
essentially like
being
a
able
covered
to
garage.
access it.
Yes, it is exactly right. Everything will be accessed from the front. That's what they're.
Has the first responders looked at this yet, Kevin? Because there's no way you can get a fire truck back there, and probably not an ambulance either.
You don't need, they
So-
wouldn't come in that way.
They'd have to come in the front, right?
No, that, either the front or come in Greenway Court.
But they have a fence now,
It's not gonna be, I mean, it could have a gate, it can have,
okay?
doesn't have to have a fence. But you have the option to have a fence, you could have a gate. It could be 4 feet tall, it could be just a split rail fence. But there's lots of things going on behind this building
I'm aware of that.
that the fire department is either gonna access from the back if there's a need, or from the front. They can get down Greenway Court with limited apparatus. A ladder truck is not gonna access.
But
Greenway
I
Court.
heard fence, and so I thought that's out, so my question was, has first responders looked at this yet? And I guess they haven't. Exactly. But you don't see that as being a potential issue for them.
This is
Take a look
not
at it from
this
building
is not a
code.
garage. The reason I originally asked the question about the height was, is it appropriate to require a sign like clearance 9 feet or 9.5 feet clearance?
Private
like you see in
property,
the-
they can do that if they want. It's not like
not
public
something we
public
could
parking
require.
deck, that's, I think it's 7.5 feet clearance. So now, you get to the end, the arch is 9.5, but the sides are gonna be more like 7.5. but it's private property. They can do that if they'd like.
We'll shift from parking. I have another question, just choice that was made on the third building, the spec residential, the 10-12 pitch on the roof that adds that extra 1.5 feet. Why did you make that decision to push up on that building?
Well, my architect made the decision, but the main, I'm just, I'm not an architect, but the main point was to try to not make it all look like just one big blob of a building, but to create some points of distinction. And same thing with the material choices. Like we tried to pick different materials, so it had very. This architect's great. I've worked with her on several projects and historic projects before. In Dilworth, down in Charlotte, some old downtown buildings like in downtown Lenore that renovated. So she and I spent a morning, we just walked around downtown Blowing Rock and got a feel for like, okay, what's the character of this place? And then with the scale, the massing, the materials, all that, that's why she did that, just to create a little bit of a point. And the building stepped down as the grade falls. And so I think she put that one just to kind of anchor the whole thing. But that was why it was done.
Is this aluminum roof, just by appearance?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This could be short-term rental at some point too, correct?
Sure.
Okay. Garbage collection, have you guys decided how to meet that requirement? Dumpsters for the possibility of?
No dumpsters.
No dumpsters, so what?
It's residential, so there's no, this is gonna be like 3 houses and an office. So some rollouts, they could do shared rollouts and they could be accessed through the back. I'm on the wrong page. I wanna go back to the aerial. I don't know how it's handled now. Keith, do you know?
What?
Garbage collection?
Garbage collection? Well, everything goes to Morris Street, out front to Morris Street. Well, on the back, the garbage trucks come into the back. There's a dumpster back there, and they pick that dumpster up from the back.
Mm-hmm.
But everything, the units in this complex now would all carry their garbage to Morris Street.
Okay. Do they have an individual can?
Individual can.
Okay.
And as it stands now, there's really, well, let me back off on that a little bit. The units in the back do have a right to carry their garbage back to the dumpster as it stands today. There was a negotiated agreement to allow them to do that. But, and maybe Horry does that, I don't know. But everything else, it's only me and Caroline in this place.
Yeah.
That's the garbage on the street, Morris Street.
Okay.
Sir, for Taylor's benefit, your name and address, please?
Keith Tester.
Keith,
My name
okay.
is Keith Tester, and I own the business and live in Unit 8 at Watership Town.
Thank you.
If it becomes short-term rental, will those renters have access to the back? Will they be required to park in the back parking lot?
Yeah.
I guess that's a little bit concerning, because what if a renter comes and has a Ram 1500 truck and goes back in there? What if the other tenants are gonna be aggravated with that? Because that truck with the windows out is 103 inches wide. Oh, the mirrors out, excuse me.
We probably make sure to get a bad review on Airbnb, would be the first thing. I don't know, I mean, this is my office, this would be my dad's house, the Carter's house. So, I think we could probably put some language in there, because we'll have a shared parking agreement that we're, doing, and so we can basically, if there are things like that, we could even make specifications, say like, hey, no, oversized trucks, no dualies, no something. And then maybe it's a sort of way we can make it where you can't do it. From a sort of entitlement standpoint within those units. But I don't know if there's a way to actually prevent all possible risk with it, you know? I mean, even just, I don't know if I guess they could get through the, passageway. But,
You can couch it any way you want to, but the real answer to his question is, they'll park in these 8 parking spaces up front. They can get through that gate, they'll leave the trucks on.
Could the bylaws, the HOA or POA change that?
yeah, we could definitely put it in there.
Could you do that?
Well, to be honest with you, we have a defunct POA now. There are bylaws that specify what you can do, what you can be able to do, what you can't do, and that sort of thing. But for years, that has been defunct, not enforced at all. So I think what we're looking at is a situation where we look at what David's doing and then rewrite that set of bylaws to accommodate today.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying, Keith, is that his ownership into the POA, y'all will have to address these issues as a POA and not necessarily from a planning board stand.
That's right.
Okay.
There's some documents that govern the POA.
Okay.
And we haven't taken a look at those for years.
Right.
And what David is doing here will change the entire makeup of that complex and require us to sit down and look at those documents and update them to accommodate what really is there today.
Okay.
How do people get through the gate? Is it a remote control? Is it, what's?
We
or is
probably
it-
just do like just a
Okay.
garage door, you know?
Okay,
Like a remote.
so if people are renting, let's say that these do end up going short term, y'all would figure out how to let people access the park.
It'd probably be like an emergency code thing, you know, or something.
Gotcha.
Any other questions?
Just to clarify, all this excludes that little piece of gravel parking that is not a part of the property, right? Is that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's the hints.
My question is how you protect that. If it's there, people are gonna park in it. If it's not.
Now, let me insert one other thing here. When you talk about the parking up front, as I pointed out before, I can count 8 spaces there. But when David builds in the back, and you put that archway, the center of that parking lot ceases to be a parking lot. It's a driveway. So now you may get 8 cars in there and you may not. But even if you put 8 in there, if you look at where those 2 cars are sitting now, when those cars get ready to leave, they back up into a parking lot and then turn and come out the street. Once he does this, those cars go back into an active driveway and come out. So that whole front is totally redefined with this project. How it's used, what it had, the layout of it, and everything. And the same thing is true on Dr. Hannah's side. When his tenants come in, they'll come down the center of the driveway and pull in, but when they back out of there, they're backing into an active driveway. So this changes a lot of things, including risk in there. And that's the subject that I want to get to eventually, is what this does with all of that in the front, which now does come out, enter and exit onto Moore Street, but now he's gonna build his units back there with another set of traffic that comes out onto Moore Street. And if you look, that's gonna create a real traffic issue on Moore Street, because Moore Street is the walkway down to the school for children, parents. It's, the school uses as parking when school is not, when school is not in session, people park there and walk up. So this creates a very significant risk issue on Morris Street. And when you look at how you lay this out, how you manage it, that has to be taken into consideration. That you're adding a great deal of risk on that sidewalk in the street of Morris Street.
Don't you already have 2 motels on that street that have extensive traffic going in and out of their parking lots? And you're talking about adding 6 parking spaces here? And you're talking about adding 6 parking spaces in the back.
That's right.
And you already have 2 motels on that street with, just looking at the homestead right there, I can't count those that quickly, but they have quite a few parking spaces. The Hemlock across the street has.
You got 5 hotels that still have traffic.
I understand that, but
And in a specific place across the high traffic.
I don't understand how 6 spaces is gonna create a significance.
I'm not suggesting that that's something that would condemn this project, but I'm just saying, be aware that.
Yeah, fair enough.
I do have a question with that, though, if I could look at, because right now, you're correct, that is not a throughway to the back of the building for the 6 parking spots back there. But it is a throughway because if you're going to park in one of those spots, you're going down an alley. You're saying a driveway compared to a parking spot. I see it being a driveway anyway, because when you go between your facility and the Diamonds facility, that's a driveway to get to the back and park. You're just adding a hole and extending 6 spots back there from what we're doing. And right now, on the Hannah property, they have to back up and watch people coming in to park on that property anyway, because the center lane of that is a driveway to get to each of those 8 parking.
They don't have to worry about traffic coming through a gate, behind gate.
Well, yeah, that's true. They could see that, but my point is that it's an alleyway to some sort, it's a driveway to get to those spots, no matter what. I do agree that we always have a problem on Morris Street, because Morris Street has got a good bit of high buildings or blockage as you come out of there anyway, with the Diamond property being so close to the road, and we can't extend the sidewalks any bigger than what they are right now. And they have a ton of children, because I watch the children every day walk up and down there. So that is an issue with visibility. I don't know how to handle that any better, you know.
And a large part of my concern when I look at this, not long-term traffic through here to that sidewalk, but this entire project is going to be built on that side. And
Yep.
you're going to have, for a period of a year, whatever it takes to build it, you're going to have a significant problem with managing traffic, trucks, all the equipment that goes in there, out, and gear coming out onto it. It's no different than other projects, I realize that. But it is, what makes it a bit different is the school traffic.
Yep.
Any other questions for David, please?
I don't know if they're for David, but it is in the watershed. It's a protected area. Is there any considerations or anything that we need to think about in terms of built-upon area? None? And we're losing the grass in the back, but is there, kind of just walk me through, is it a containment system or what kind of, I just wasn't able to quite understand that, what was sent to us.
There's a box right here, a concrete box the town put in. We had a lot of, as I explained earlier, there's a lot of different drainage that comes off the backs of these buildings, comes off Main Street and Greenway Court. And it kind of collects and funnels down through here. Some of it used to go down through, you can't see what my hands do. So it collects off all these properties, and then some flows across here. There's a pipe connected that empties right there So it all makes its way down through here and would get behind the valets here at Homestead. So the town came in about 10 years ago and put the detention box here that collected some surface runoff. And then when it left this box, there's a pipe back there that is elevated and goes back behind the building and contains that amount of water, and then the other surface water, and what comes off the gutters back in this corner, and what doesn't come off any gutter just runs off the roof, collects back here, and it runs back in behind the valet's hotel there. So the idea is to direct stormwater falling here and off the backs of the gutter drains into this box, so it has at least an opportunity to hold up while the major storm event is finished, and then release over a period of time. That's what that was back there.
And that box is big enough to accommodate this.
Yeah, it's, I asked the town engineer last week about the possibility of making a connection into that and just collecting some surface water.
Okay. That's all I've got.
Thank you.
So we've got,
I actually have, I'm sorry, David, I've got a couple questions about the finishes. Your beauty bands, are those, what material is that? I noticed you said stucco for a good portion of it.
You're talking about the bands, the transition
Yes.
materials?
Yeah.
So those would be hardy.
Hardy,
or
okay.
5% painted.
And then what about the parapets? Are those also metal?
I don't know if it was it showing the color part. Let's see. Sheet shot.
Would it match the metal roofing?
I think what she's showing here, she's showing like painted material, like
Oh,
fiber
okay,
cement.
okay,
Yeah.
Built up metal trim around flat roof.
thank you.
What they call it, coping,
Yeah.
flashing? Yeah, that would be metal, the very
Okay.
top piece.
Cool, thanks.
Is that what the HVAC's doing on the roof?
There's some little spots in the back where it might be better or on the roof, I'm not sure. But our hope would be that we could, there's sort of a dead space between the parking along the sides, that maybe we could put it in those spaces, not in the rear setback, but it's right against the building.
The runoff on that metal roof, on the pitched roof, is it gonna be trapped with gutters or just free fall?
Low gutters.
Can we say something? If anyone on the committee has not seen the property, it's not even good discussion there. You should go look at it. It's a very small area, and right now, any traffic around there really affects everything.
I've been driving down that alleyway.
sounds like we've all been there. We stated that at the beginning of the meeting.
Well, not everybody said that. Not everybody said that. There's a few people that did not say that they went there. But I just think it's a good idea for everybody to go and look at it.
Get the opinion from people what's happening in there. And then we can
And I think that, that looks very nice and everything, but we're trying to visualize.
he's very nice, we like him, but, we have to think about things we have to live with.
We have to think about our property, so what I'm gonna do when I want to develop my property, and how that's gonna affect it.
I think about coming down that alleyway every 50 years, I can hardly make it to work. How it's gonna help, how we gonna work.
Would you make a motion?
And as it is right now, the town is using the alleyway and going back and forth and not maintaining. So it's tough out there.
Please, drive down the alleyway, please, that's all I ask. Don't do anything else, just drive down the alleyway. And then you
And look at how big this is. It's beautiful. I have to say that the drawings are gorgeous. They really are quite pretty. But I'm just thinking about what it's going to be like when it's all done. And I know that's what everybody here is trying to do. And we just
can't make it to work.
we don't want to end up with something that's going to make it life more difficult in White Rock with all the traffic and everything, the parking situations, everything that's going on. We just want to make sure it's not going to make things worse.
If it works, it's fine.
Which is, I think, what you all are all interested in doing.
While we've got the applicant up here, I hate to interrupt you, but if we can finish with the applicant and then we can take the questions. Anything else for David while he's up?
Did you have another question?
I did not, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Now, all this is not a public hearing, but town council likes us to entertain comments from the public. But we've heard from a lot of you, but there still may be some of you that want to make a comment. We'll be glad to hear from you. If you'll do so, please come to the podium.
I probably said everything that I intended to come up here and say, but at the risk of repeating, let me say that I'm very much like this project, but I will caution again and again that it comes with risks that need to be managed. This project will replace some 1940s, 1951 small motel units with 21st century building. And I think that's a plus for Blowing Rock. It's a plus for that complex. And I don't speak for the POA or anybody there, but I'll speak for myself that I think this is a good project, and I am totally in favor of it. But again, I'll repeat, when you look at what happens out front especially during the development process, there's substantial risk created to the traffic on Morris Street. So as you consider, and this probably is more the staff responsibility, I guess, but when you consider implementing this project, think about what you can do to mitigate the risk along that sidewalk. But I think it's a good upgrade for Blowing Rock.
Anyone else? Okay.
Can I make one suggestion too? And I don't know if we need to make this an motion or if it's even our position to say so. Kevin, you may want to correct me on some of this. This project will probably be built during school time, ins and outs. Currently, the major traffic flow for drop-off and pickup, drop-off is between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, and pickup is between 2:30 and 3 o'clock. Morris Street is backed up all the way onto Main Street. I get to wave at all the neighbors as they go by when they pick up their kids. That is going to be a real, as Keith mentioned a minute ago, a real concern. I think we ought to recommend, if the project does go through, that the city or the sheriff's, the police department reroute the traffic during the times of construction for this facility, because that could be a very dangerous. A lot of kids walking there and cars just like crazy down there.
So-
And 80% of them have phones in their hand, okay?
With the new principal being at Blowing Rock School, there's a new drop-off and pickup procedure that will be instituted for this new school year. I'd be happy to share that video with the planning board. You're still gonna have a good amount of traffic on Morris Street, but with some of these drop-off and pickup things changing, the goal is to alleviate a lot of that congestion and bottleneck that does occur. So to your point, yes, there's still gonna be a ton of traffic, lots of children present, but it will be somewhat mitigated with this new drop-off and pickup procedure.
We're gonna shove it to sunset?
Yeah. That's exactly
Let's
what's
shove it to
happening.
sunset.
Yep.
One thing that could be considered, instead of affecting drop-off patterns for school, is to condition work times or a arrival times for crews that are working while school's in session, where don't arrive before 8:15 or what, or something like that, so that as it goes forward as a condition of construction contracts that David would need if this project goes forward, that we take a look at timing for demo and construction staging, that you utilize a lot of the areas in the back for construction staging. So we can entertain some conditions like that could be.
Well, in light of that, oh,
I have a
okay.
question for Kevin.
Go ahead.
Just before you're getting ready to make a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, just before you do. So just to be, like, step back for a moment. I think you said this, but we'll say it out loud, make sure it's right. If we want to recommend this project for approval to the town council, the request includes 2 variances, not just the one, right?
That's
So
right.
we're doing this setback for the second floor, and then the 8.5-foot wide parking spaces in the back. And setting aside for a moment the thoughts about construction, like, that's the minimum though that we would need, that this project would need as it's currently proposed.
Yes, sir.
To be built.
Well, in light of that, again, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the project in the 2 amendments that have been proposed and make a recommendation on the timing of construction during school seasons.
Are you, clarification, are you suggesting that he limit construction during school hours or just during drop-off?
During
and pickup?
drop-off, for clarification, drop-off and pickup.
Limit construction, you said the guys are on the site.
No,
they
no,
can't-
no,
they have to
limit-
quit working.
Limit access.
Construction crews accessing the property on Morris Lane during pickup and drop-off. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Not limiting construction, but
No, they
limiting
can work, yeah.
construction crews arriving in the hours in the morning and the afternoon during drop-off and pickup, if that's what you're suggesting. Is that clear?
I think so. So I think the biggest, I might be wrong, I'm not down there anymore with school. But in the morning, probably 7 to 8. If you blocked off 7 to 8,
You got it.
construction noise and construction activities really are not supposed to start until 7. But if they delayed that until 8, most all that school traffic is on. I don't know about the afternoon, if it's as burdensome in the afternoons as is in the morning. I don't know. Maybe it is.
Isn't there a police officer at the
Yeah.
corner directing traffic?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Main
just as
Street?
burdensome in the
Yeah.
afternoon, it really is.
But I wouldn't say that they have to stop work.
No.
I would think
No,
that they,
no
you know,
access.
no deliveries,
No deliveries
no,
or access?
no
crews?
So they can't-
leaving this, stay on site until that's done. I don't want to get too far into it, but I think that's what you're aiming at.
We'll let the council.
Could you do
decide.
deliveries to
Council
the
will
back
decide
through
on the specifics.
Greenway?
Yeah, can you not?
Can you not deliver through Greenway or?
No.
No? Okay, I see it, I see you shaking your head,
I
so.
don't believe so, because we would have to go across Sixpence's property.
And they're parking and all that stuff. So
Okay, so you're stuck, okay.
Do you need a second for that motion, for GK's motion? Because I'll make a second.
Can I hear the motion again, please?
You want to say it again?
Okay, the motion is that we approve the proposal with the 2 variances that we have, one for the 8.5-foot parking lot and the other for the 5-foot variance on the second story. And then that we recommend that they have between 7 and 8 during school years, time, that they don't start work until at 8 o'clock, and that they don't have any deliveries or anything during the 2:30 to 3:30 pickup times.
That's clear.
So,
Any discussion on this?
yeah, so I'm in favor of the project. I don't like the construction. I don't like interfering with the construction, because I think everywhere else, it seems to me everywhere else in town, we put the burden on residents or neighbors or whomever to, for lack of a better word, complain if they don't like something. And entering into I mean, we're taking a zoning action, and I'm not saying you can't do it. It just, to me, entering into this of interfering with how an owner is going to contract with a contractor to get work done doesn't sit well. And, you know, if the building supply companies are trying to deliver during school, they're going to be pretty unhappy. And because during the drop-off times, right? Because the drivers are going to be idling, you know, just like the parents.
If it's at pickup time, they'd be sitting there anyhow, because there's
Well,
an
that's what I'm
officer
saying.
at the corner, so
Well, that's what
you're
I'm saying.
probably right.
And anyway, I mean, appreciate it and understand where you guys are coming from. My view is it's like a step beyond what I would think for the SCP for this project. Like, again, I'm in favor of it. I just like that extra condition of the construction makes me uncomfortable with interfering with that relationship.
I have 3 kids that go to one high school, and so I have a particular sensitivity to, living here and my children go there, wanting it to go. Well, I don't want my wife, calling me and being like, "What are you doing? You're causing this." That's something I try to avoid. So I'm particularly sensitive to it. If that gives you any level of comfort, I'm invested in the community.
And these are just recommendations, they carry no
Exactly.
weight.
I think the recommendation, I'm not going to withdraw it because I think it's an appropriate recommendation, not necessarily in writing to the council to approve, but I think it should be, we should have something in there that states the liability that the city and the owners will have because of the children. Homeowners next door, I had a lot built next to me too, so, but it can complain, people complained about mine. Okay, but I think we ought to leave it in there if that, in my recommendation.
We got a motion on the floor. In a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
3, 4. Okay. So
I
5.
counted 5. 1,
So-
2, 3, 4, 5. Not you. 4.
Is Chris going to make a motion? on his?
Chris is going to make a motion after we do the counting. I think we're still counting this motion.
Okay.
So we got 5, 4, 5 in favor, I should say. And how many opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4.
4 opposed.
Motion fails.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the project, including the 2 waivers that we discussed, 8.5-foot parking spaces in the second story in the setback.
So there's a second to that motion.
Second.
Greg? All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you for coming.
Nobody bothered to tell me how I'm going to access the parking spaces I have during the construction, and you all didn't mention that. So I haven't heard that. I mean, I'd like to know, are those parking spaces that I have my property, is it going to be accessible during construction? And
It's all private property.
You don't understand what construction goes like here, probably, I don't know, maybe you do. But, I mean, I have patients of mine that have been building houses and they can't get a house finished because of the winter, because of construction, trying to find people. This project could last a long time. So I'm thinking about long term for my standpoint as well, as an owner of that property. And I don't want to see that construction going on so long that it affects me. I'm sorry. But I think it's beautiful, it's great, if you can figure out all this, but I don't see a guarantee from this committee that my property's not gonna be affected.
I would encourage you to meet with the developer and the PIA.
That's what you're supposed to do.
No, not their job. Sorry.
Well, I believe it's your job, but that's my opinion. I'm a physician, I'm not one of you all, but I would tell you that I've been through projects like this before, and usually there's some guarantees from the committee as to what's gonna happen to the properties around it.
We purely make recommendations to town council. That's a public hearing, and I would encourage you to go to that public hearing and express those concerns.
Absolutely.
And most likely, Dr. Hannah, that would be September, the second Tuesday. I don't know what the date is. But we'll send out notice for the meeting too. Yes, sir.
I appreciate that.
Any other business? Any updates?
No, sir. I don't have any.
Therefore, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks for putting up with me.